a while since I've posted a sewing video, and it's been a long day, hence my pajamas and my look.
And thanks to Thrive Marketplace for sponsoring this video. We'll talk more about them in a little bit.
It's been a long week and it has been a long month. So I've just spent the past 5 weeks working on all those costumes that you see hanging right there. I just spent a lot of time making 8 dresses and 9 pairs of pants, but it's been crazy amount of sewing. On top of all that, I have this trip coming up to Greece, which is going to be a 3-week-long trip with my sister and her friend and family. It's been in the works for like a couple months, I think, but I'm just tagging along. But I knew I really wanted to make some costumes to do the final reveal in Greece, because why not? So I had that plan, but I had all those costumes to make, and I had the plan to make 3 dresses for Greece, but I have yet to start on any of them. And I leave in 9 days. So yeah, and it's not just 9 days away. I have a very busy week coming up, with Thursday through Sunday being completely full of other stuff, and really Wednesday too. So I only have Monday and Tuesday and tonight to even get a fraction of what I need to get done, but we're just gonna go for it and see what happens. So that's why I'm moving to the living room, so I can just have a nice evening watching something while I make some good headway on the first dress that I want to make. Then we're just gonna go from there. I have no idea if we're gonna get even one dress done. I know there's one dress that I'm gonna do a lot of hand sewing on, so I'm going to save a lot of that stuff for on the airplane. The other stuff I need to get at least somewhat started and seen if it's even possible, but we'll see. So here goes a sewing video that will not be as pretty cinematography as it can be here on this channel. It's gonna be very vlog, put together, dark lighting, you know, dark and moody.
For the design of the dress, I decided on a sleeveless wrap dress with some gathering of the fabric on the bodice front and some on the back. And the skirt will be circle cut, and a belt and 2 ties will be attached to the bodice, and the ties will wrap around and tie at the side to close up the wrap dress. So for the fabrics, I'm using this fabric that I picked up from a local fabric store. It's a fabric that has some stretch to it and a very slight crinkle look, and to me it feels like a rayon. I got it a while ago, so I'm really not sure what it's exactly called. And then for the interlining of the bodice, I am using a basic lightweight cotton, and I'm starting off with cutting the pattern out of this first. So I'm using the pattern that I made when I created this linen wrap dress for Easter, but I am adjusting the darts so there's only 1 in the interlining, and I'm also removing the collar. So for the interlining, I'm going to sew up the darts, but on the outer fabric, I'm adding even more width to the pattern, and this extra width and the dart amount will be gathered up instead of the dart being sewn in this outer fabric. And that's gonna create the gathering look that I want. And it's thanks to Thrive Market for sponsoring this video. Thrive Market is an online membership-based grocery store with a mission to make healthy and sustainable living easy and affordable for everyone. So much so that they guarantee savings on every order, and if you find a lower price somewhere else, they'll match it. They're also all about the highest quality organic and sustainable products. So you'll find some of your favorite brands and discover new ones. They're able to offer products for a variety of diets and lifestyle, and to make it easy for you to find those products, you can sort the items based on all of those different options. And it's all shipped right to your door. They offer free shipping on all orders over $49, and it's all delivered with carbon neutral shipping right from their zero waste warehouses. Thrive Market not only has the goal to help you save money and time, but also the planet. They're on a mission to be the first climate positive grocery store, and that's something to get on board with. So click the link in my description box or go to thrivemarket.com/Bellamy to get 30% off your first order and get a free gift worth up to $60 when you join the Thrive Market today.
So once the dart is sewn on the interlining, I overlay the outer fabric and pinned some of the gathers up around the dart. So instead of a random gather, I did more of a pleating gather, if that makes sense. It's not perfectly neat pleats, nor is it a random gather pattern. So on the back piece, instead of doing gathers at each of the darts, I just did some gathers at the center back. Then I used my serger to clean up the edges while also sewing the layers together and keeping the pleat gathers in place. Now I'm going to sew up the shoulder and side seams, but on the right side seam, as you wear it, I left the bottom 1.5 inches unsewn. This is to allow for the under tie to come to the outside of the dress and tie together with that outer tie. So at this opening, I folded back the seam allowances along the sewing line and then did a top stitch around the opening to keep this fold in place. Now all the seams are pressed open and I can go into the skirt. So as I mentioned with the skirt, I want it circle cut and I decided on 3 skirt pieces, each of them cut as a 1/4 circle. So in total, it's 3/4 of a circle skirt. Since this is a wrap dress, 2 of the edges of the skirt pieces aren't sewn together and they just hang free. So instead of having a point hanging free on each of these, I decided to round off the points and I just completely eyeballed this. Before attaching the skirt, I'm going to make the belt and ties. I just cut out some pieces on the straight grain and I eyeballed it at about 3 inches wide. And this will create a 1-inch belt and ties. The belt is the length of the bodice waist, and one of the ties is cut at 50 inches and the other one at 35 inches long. For the belt, I just ironed it in half wrong sides together and set that aside. And then for the ties, folded them in half right sides together, sewed up that long open edge, and turned the tie right side up. And then I attached the ties to each end of the belt. Now I can attach the belt to the bodice. After getting that belt attached, I'm now attaching the skirt. I could have attached the belt and the skirt at the same time, but I wanted to make sure the belt was evenly attached, so doing it separately just helped with that. Now to finish up the edges of the bodice, I opted for a binding. I cut about 1.5 inches wide bias cut strip of fabric and attached it about 3/8 inch away from the edge. Then I pulled the free edge of the binding around to the wrong side of the bodice and pinned it in place. So the standard here is to fold that raw edge in to contain it, but this fabric does not fray very much, if at all. Plus, it's cut on a bias, so I decided to just make it super easy and leave the raw edge there. And then I did a stitch in the ditch to keep it in place. So this is just sewing from the right side of the bodice right along the seam edge of the binding. So once done sewing, that fold of the binding mostly covers those stitches. And so the stitch in the ditch is saying you're stitching right in the indent of that binding seam, and then the fold kind of hides it. So to finish it off, I also made a cotton underskirt because the outer fabric is pretty sheer. But after wearing the dress in Greece for a day, I realized that the 2 fabrics really didn't flow well together and the skirts kind of just got caught up in each other. So I ended up cutting away the underskirt and opted for just wearing a slip. That worked way better. But there's actually one last thing that needed doing, and that's the hem. And that ended up getting done at the airport as I waited at various airports.
With how the fabric behaved, I knew I didn't want to machine sew the circle hems, so hand sewing it was the optimal choice anyway, so why not work on it during the travel and keep my hands busy. So that completes this one dress for Greece, and next video we'll talk about the dress that I ended up entirely hand sewing while I was in Greece. Also, when trying to get some footage of this dress, my camera decided to have some major issues with focusing, but fortunately we had some handy dandy phones that can take great videos too. Sure to stay tuned to next video where we'll talk about that dress that I completely hand sew while in Greece. Even though it was not the plan to do that, it ended up being really fun and enjoyable. But also, thanks again to Thrive Market for sponsoring this video. Be sure to claim their offer by clicking the link in the description box or go to thrivemarket.com/BellaMay to get 30% off your order, plus get a free gift worth up to $60. So be sure to check them out.